Hello, and welcome to Beyond the Battlefield Live. I'm Jeff Muskus, and joining me at the Huffington Post studio in New York is David Wood, our senior military correspondent, whose decades of reporting from combat zones around the world has informed his epic 10-part series on the challenges that are faced by America's wounded veterans and those close to them. The final part of that series, running today on the Huffington Post, features Bobby Henline, who faced a long road to recovery after being catastrophically wounded in Iraq, but now performs stand-up comedy for U.S. troops, as you'll see in the following video, after which Bobby will join us himself.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Bobby Henline.
I usually walk out and I'm quiet. I kind of look at the crowd, let them take it in, and I tell them, you should see the other guy. So I'm talking about airborne.
Army Staff Sergeant Bobby Henline of the 82nd Airborne was the only one of 5 paratroopers to survive a horrific IED blast in Iraq. Now he's using his disfigurement to fight back.
Because I am a burn survivor. Thank you, I've been extinguished for years.
Bobby Henline joined the Army when he was 17. He served 4 years, fought in Desert Storm in Iraq, and got out. Got married, had kids, and a string of unfulfilling jobs. Then, just weeks before September 11th, 2001, he decided to re-enlist. He was at home watching TV with his wife when the terrorists struck.
It was like everybody else. We saw that first plane hit, and like, oh, is that, an accident? What was going on? And then as you watch the news, that second plane hits, and right away I told her, I said, that's terrorists. We're going to war.
On his 4th combat tour to Iraq, his luck ran out. Doctors couldn't explain how he lived through this, but he did.
The IED blew up the vehicle. I caught on fire. The guy that I was actually there to replace, he ran up and extinguished me. Then swooped teeth out of my throat that I was choking on. These are my new teeth. I had what they call blue teeth. One blew that way, one blew that way. I did 4 tours in Iraq. I loved my job. I tell you, I'd do it again. I had a great time. But for real, that last tour was a real blast.
Henline attracts plenty of stares. He turned to comedy as a way to pierce that barrier between those who are wounded and disfigured and those who are not. Despite his initial misgivings, it's working. He plays gigs like this benefit concert at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and makes his second appearance in Las Vegas at the Tropicana in January.
My son one day came running downstairs and grabbed my Egos out of the toaster. And I snatched them back from him. I said, let go of my Egos. He grabbed them with both hands and said, 2-1, Dad, I win. Most guys I've talked to, military and civilian, as far as burn survivors, we want to make it easier for the next group. Unfortunately, we don't want more burns, but we know it's going to happen. But with awareness, you're going to make it easier for them to be out in public and deal with it. Hey, come on. There we go.
Through the strength of his personality, Bobby has turned his near-fatal wounds into a vehicle for boundless optimism, a thankfulness for what he's got in life, and a mission to help others.
And if I continue to do this, and I help people the rest of my life, and I've helped better them, then that's the best revenge I can get on this guy that did this to me and my buddies, because I will help more people than he will ever hurt.
Bobby Henline's experiences raise a question that many of those badly wounded in combat wonder as they begin to recover. Why did I survive? For what purpose? Read how he found the answer in the story that follows.
People always say, I don't know how to thank the vets. What do I do? What do I do? Live your life to the fullest. Do what I'm doing. Chase your dreams. There's no reason to stop.
Wow. Again, that's the final video in our Beyond the Battlefield series on severely wounded veterans. The subject, Bobby Henline, will be joining us in a moment, but first, David, your thoughts on what we just watched?
Wow. I've seen that film, which was shot by our champion videographer, Adam Kaufman. Probably seen it a dozen times, and of course I was there at the concert. Chokes me up every time I see it. I get teary because Bobby is so good, so funny, and the troops just were absolutely eating it up. You should know that the soldiers in that video are at Fort Jackson, South Carolina in basic training.
So they're about to head out.
So their new soldiers have not been to war yet, and I was a little concerned about how they were going to take this.
Right.
They loved it. You could see they were just cracking up. They absolutely loved it, and gave him a huge ovation when he was finished. It was great to see.
That's great. And joining us now, live via Skype from San Antonio, Texas, the subject of the video in today's finale to Beyond the Battlefield, Bobby Henline. Welcome, Bobby.
Thank you.
Hey, Bobby.
Hey, David. How's it going?
Great. We've gotten a tremendous response to the series. Thank you for, cooperating with us to get this done and for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much.
I wanted to ask you, the president today announced that all U.S. troops will be withdrawn from Iraq at the end of this year as scheduled. There was some indecision about that, and I think they were trying to negotiate an extension, but they're all going to be withdrawn. You sacrificed a lot for that country and for our country. So what are your thoughts about hearing this sort of the end of the war?
I was excited. I was just out in Iraq with Operation Proper Exit. Troops First Foundation puts that on. They bring wounded warriors back to kind of see how the country's doing and how they progress and everything. And we heard back then that it might be December 31st, the withdrawal. And it's perfect timing because when I was out there, I got to see the Iraqi army perform amazing things, clearing buildings. They look just like our troops going in and clearing these rooms. We got to watch their exercises. The Iraqi police, they've come such a long way, since I was back then there in Desert Storm. They've come a long way from 03, 05. And again, I was out there in 07. And just, it's time. Now, I know it's going to take probably 11 years or more before you see a huge change. I mean, it's going to take that younger generation, those hearts and minds we were trying to get. And you're going to see that when they come up in the ranks of running their country, because they're not going to forget this. I'm very hopeful that this has made a huge difference in Iraqi lives. And most of them I talk to agree.
So you feel that your sacrifice was worth it?
Yes, definitely. Every day, I volunteered twice to go to Iraq, back in Desert Storm and to come back in the Army again after a 10-year break for 9/11. I really love helping out other countries. I believe, no one wanted to be treated that way. If we were being treated from a dictator like that, we would love to someone come in and help our country out too.
So you went back to where you'd been almost killed, where 4 of your close buddies were killed. You went back there last summer. What was that like?
That was an amazing day. Going back into Iraq was just like flying to Dallas or Chicago to us wounded guys. Just another airport. But it was just, I got a lot of closure because, I don't remember anything that day. I met guys that helped me medevac out. I got some stories. I got to see photos of my actual scene and kind of filling a lot of blanks. So personally, it was incredible for me. It was awesome to see how the country has progressed. And one of the amazing things to see was coming back. We're on that C-130 and we're flying back over the border into Kuwait. The pilots let us know that we're crossing the border right now, and to watch guys with 1 leg, 2 prosthetic legs. We all stood up so that we can cross back this time, not laying in a medevac, but standing proud. It was just an amazing thing for us.
Wow. One of the things, I spent 7 months doing this 10-part series, talking to Bobby and others. And, we use the word courage a lot. I think we use it kind of casually. But boy, here it is right here. It's just amazing. And I was so privileged to meet Bobby and guys like him.
We've gotten a ton of questions from readers from all over. Most of the overwhelming majority either lead or the entire message is thank you so much for your service. But one of the other principal themes, one of the questions we've been getting a lot, is about sort of the genesis of the series. David, you said you've been working on this for 6 months, and yet if you read the stories closely, you can see that there are some sources you talked to last fall. There are some sources you talked to a doctor in 2008, stuff like that. What was the genesis of this project? How long has it been building?
It's been building for decades, really. I've been a war reporter for a long time, and I've seen people killed, and I've seen a lot of people wounded. When somebody's wounded on the battlefield today, it's such an intense event that happens. People are rushing around trying to save that person. Medevac helicopters coming in, they load them on, it takes off in a sort of a hurricane of dust and stones, and then it's quiet. And I always wanted to know what happened to that guy, and what was that like for him, and what's his life like now? And it really wasn't until I came to the Huffington Post earlier this year that I had the opportunity and the encouragement to go find out.
You talked about, Bobby has spent so many tours in Iraq before he was grievously wounded, and then he had the courage to go back. Likewise, you've been a combat reporter for some 35 years, and you were born a Quaker, raised during Vietnam, you were a conscientious objector. What keeps you going out to the battlefield?
It's telling stories like this. I mean, there's not a lot of people in this country who volunteer to serve in the military. I think many Americans don't know directly anybody in the military, and I think to a lot of people it's sort of a strange culture, really, and they don't understand why people go in or what they do when they get there. And so I've always tried to tell the stories of people in the military to get Americans to come to know the people they send off to fight our wars. Whether we agree with the war policy or not, these are our fellow Americans out there, and I've always felt very strongly that we need to understand who they are and what they do and why they do it. So that's really what I've done for pretty much my whole career, is tell stories like Bobby's.
And the question that people keep asking me is, where do you find people like Bobby? How did you meet the principal subjects for this series?
Well, I'm a reporter, so I know how to find things. I thought at first it would be hard to talk to people who are disabled or disfigured because I felt awkward about invading their personal space. And I think a lot of people do. When you see somebody in a wheelchair or somebody with 2 prosthetic legs, you don't know whether to say thank you for your service or just try to ignore them or really how to behave. It's sort of an awkward social situation.
Right.
What I found very quickly, talking to some of these folks, is that they want to be asked. They are proud of their service, proud of their sacrifice, and in many cases what they told me was, look, my wounds, my scars, my missing limbs are sort of physical evidence of my sacrifice, and I want to be acknowledged. So come ask me. Don't stare, don't drag your kids away. Bobby talks about this very compellingly, and we should give him a chance to chime in here. But overwhelmingly, I found people want to be asked. And so once I started meeting some of the wounded, it was very easy to sort of network out, and I found them very anxious to tell their stories. Bobby?
Bobby, you spoke very eloquently about this very issue, both in today's story and in the story that ran on Tuesday, which was focused almost entirely on this sort of the just ask mentality. Can you speak a little to that?
It's just like anything else. Say you have breast cancer or lung cancer, and you get that sickness, you're almost, at that brink, and you look at life differently, and you become another person. You see things a lot different, and you want to get the awareness out there. And that's the same thing. Come up and ask us. We want to tell you about us. We want to tell you that we're still the same person inside. We like to go out dancing. We like to, go to dinner and watch a movie. Because people see the outside. They see this shell, and they just automatically not sure, like, that person must not be happy. Look at them. And so to break that stereotype, 1, you could tell jokes. 2, you can just talk to them. Say, hey, how you doing? Have a nice day. My name's so-and-so. Really, the worst thing to do is, or the easiest thing to do is just say, do you mind if I ask what happened? And it's that simple. If they don't like talking about it, they'll say, "Oh, I don't really like talking about it." But most likely they're not. Most burn survivors I've talked to, other veterans, they want to tell you their story. They're proud. We're proud of these scars that we got, and we do it again. We do it again.
The next most common question that we've been receiving is, how can other people help? Where are the places that they can go to provide either service or other support to veterans, no matter how grievously wounded?
Yeah, there's a lot of organizations out there now. I know there's a really big ones like Operation Homefront, Wounded Warrior Project. Like when I went back to Iraq, I went Troops First Foundation. That's an amazing thing. No one else is doing that, taking wounded warriors back.
Bobby, would you say the name of that organization again?
Troops First Foundation. They've taken over 70 wounded guys back to Iraq to get that closure. And it's just, it's an incredible part of the healing when they're ready for it. We're hoping to get that started, or they, not we, but they're hoping to get that started in Afghanistan soon. I'll actually be going out there. Not exact dates I can't give you. They're due to safety, how the OPSEC works, but I'll be going out to Afghanistan this holiday season, again with Troops First Foundation to get the troops out there laughing and hang out with them a little bit.
Great. That sounds like it'll be fun. So are you going to do a concert out there?
Yeah, we're going around going with some pro golfers, and we're going to have a good time. And of course, I'm going to tell a few jokes, make fun of the golfers.
Sounds like fun. One of the things that I found is that the nonprofit volunteer organizations that Bobby was speaking about, like Troops First, the Wounded Warrior Project, Operation Homefront, really have flourished during the past 10 years because as good as the military medical system is and as good as the VA system is, and they're very, very good, there are gaps in what they can do and the ways that they can reach people. And so there are dozens and dozens and dozens of these organizations that have either started or have expanded during the past 10 years while we've been at war that do a huge variety of things. Almost anything that a veteran needs or could use, there's an organization that can provide that. We have a list of them on our website, Beyond the Battlefield, How to Help, it's called. Right. And so if people are interested in volunteering or donating or getting involved, that's a good way to do it. It's sort of a double win-win situation in the sense that these organizations provide real services for veterans and they give a way for the rest of us to get involved and to help out.
And there's sorry, go ahead, Bobby.
Sorry, you got Tempered Steel, which we talked about in the series earlier. It's a wounded warrior and his mom, Scotty Stevenson and Luana Snyder. They started Tempered Steel, and they want to get their goal is to get wounded warriors in every state to go out and talk to the schools to help spread awareness. One, about the price of freedom. No, it's not like, look at us, we did this for you. That's not what it's about. It's just like David was saying, a lot of people don't know anybody in the military. They don't understand. So just kind of go out there and talk to the kids, talk about disfigurements. It just creates so many different awarenesses. And it helps those soldiers, and the military guys to talk about what they've been through. Unlike in Vietnam where they really couldn't talk about, we had a lot more issues with that. That's the only thing I am worried about with these guys coming home. A lot of these guys, it's all they know. They came into the military and it's all they know is wartime. Now we got to be ready to catch them when they come home, when they need help. We got to make sure we're there for them in all aspects,
Amen.
We actually just got a question in from Bill Blackburn, who seems frustrated that the effects of war remain so often hidden from the American people. Besides, programs like the one you were talking about, where veterans can visit schools and that sort of thing. Is there anything else that you can think of to sort of help people increase their awareness of wounded veterans?
Those are the best ways. In stories like this that just get out there and let you know what's going on. And it's a lot different these days too with the burn survivors. We weren't surviving from other wars, so it's a whole new thing of us and people getting used to the burns. And in the VA trying to work the burn systems. I know in the story earlier talking about care. So we got to change. The VA is a good program. It's great. It really does make a big difference. Vietnam veterans, it's helped the VA grow to help us today. So I thank them every chance I get. I thank those Vietnam vets for what they did and how they helped to make it better for us. But the VA is just like a good fighting position. You got to constantly improve it. As times change, you got to constantly improve.
Yeah, again, as David was saying, the master How to Help page listing all the nonprofits that help wounded veterans in a variety of ways are available on the Huffington Post, and there's a link to that page at the top and at the bottom of each piece in David's series. What Bobby was just saying gets at another question that we received a little while ago. Felicia McCormick writes, encouraged by the progress that's been made, as David has written about, and Bobby just spoke to, in treating veterans over the past decade, from sort of 1 in 3 to now it's more than 1 in 10 is the rate of...
The ratio of killed to wounded.
That's
yeah.
right.
I mean, there are many of all those who fall on the battlefield as casualties, almost all of them today are being saved.
And to what would you guys attribute that vast improvement?
Well, there's been one of the outgrowths of this tragic decade of war is an enormous improvement in medical care, all the way from the battlefield medic or corpsmen, who are now much better trained and equipped than they ever were, through the hospitals in Iraq and Afghanistan where the wounded first go, to the very, very sophisticated airlift that gets them home. These are specially equipped Air Force planes that are essentially flying intensive care units. And of course, the rehabilitation and surgical expertise here in the United States. One of the things that's helped most, of course, is the tourniquet, which is now issued to everybody who goes on the battlefield, carries at least 2. I've got 2 when I go. They are designed so that you can use them with one hand, so you can put your own tourniquet on if you have to. Everybody is intensively trained on how to use them. And that alone has saved thousands of lives of people who previously would have bled to death on the battlefield, now that they can be saved. In Bobby's case, I think it's a testament to very, very quick medical evacuation and incredibly good care all the way from the point of injury back to the burn center at Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, where you went as a patient.
Yes. Like you're saying, they've changed so much because of this war. Before, maybe 1 or 2 people out of a squad might have a combat lifesavers course to kind of help the medics out. But now it's 100%. Everybody in unit has to have that tourniquet, has to understand how to help treat the wounded under fire and not under fire. And those tourniquets, like David said, it's just been tremendous, especially under fire when you got to get the bleeding stopped and get out of there as quick as possible.
Now, in your case, Bobby, if I'm not mistaken, when you were in this IED blast, the guy who got to you first was not a medic, right?
No, he was actually a mechanic.
He was a mechanic, but
yes.
Like you were saying, he and everybody else on the battlefield is now trained in pretty sophisticated, I mean, this is not Boy Scout first aid. This is pretty sophisticated battlefield trauma care, and he's the first guy who got to you.
Yeah, we're taught to check for breathing first, check for the breathing, because without breathing, you're not going to be there. Then you want to check for the bleeding. Those are, 2 most important things right away. And of course, in my case, it had to be extinguished first. But it went straight to me, of course, talking about the video, I'm choking on my blue teeth. And those that didn't see it, that don't know what blue teeth is, it's when one tooth blows that way and the other tooth blows the other way. but in a serious note, he saved my life in many ways from those procedures that we learned.
Yeah. Wow. What a testament.
I'm hearing a lot of raves about these stories. Everybody at the Huffington Post, I think, is getting a lot of very positive feedback about this series. What kinds of things are the two of you hearing from public, David from your government sources, Bobby from fellow veterans?
Well, most of the responses that I've got, people are emailing me to say, how can I help? And I think that, even though there was a lot of controversy about what the right policy or war strategy was for Iraq and Afghanistan, and some controversy about why we got involved in Iraq in the first place, I think there is an enormous vein of admiration and support for the troops among the American people. And it's just coming out all over. And I hope that people can find a way to turn that concern into action, and that they can, partly through our help page, but there's lots of other resources available to get involved and help veterans. You know, there's going to be a lot more of them because the war in Afghanistan is going on, and they're going to need a lot of assistance, particularly in the local communities where it's difficult for the Defense Department or the VA to reach. And there's a lot of small communities or smaller towns in the United States where there are a lot of veterans and there's not a lot of support there for them. And if there's one huge need that I've seen, it's that kind of community involvement. And I think that's where people can really get involved as volunteers.
Yeah, that's awesome you mentioned that, David, because I know in Springfield, Missouri, there's Dr. Rita Spilkins out there, and she's trying to get the Our House Foundation started, which she wants a house to kind of integrate to help catch those veterans as they come out and transition into the VA. Give them another 90 days after they get out to have a place to go. Someone's going to help them transfer into the civilian world. Give them options. Have professionals come talk to them about jobs. Different, because a lot of times you get out, you don't know what you want to do. I know when I first got out of Desert Storm, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was 19, 20 years old. What am I going to do? So, I mean, not even wartime, even peacetime, this would be a great catch to get those veterans and kind of help filter them in correctly and see what they want to do. And also have psychiatric, I can't even speak my lips, and I'm so excited, but psychiatric help for these vets as they get out. Because a lot of times you can just say what you need to say to get out because you don't want to go through the system. You don't want to get caught up in that. You just want to get out. And then when you get out, you're like, what am I going to do? That's when anxiety hits you. The PTSD kicks in. And it happens at different occasions. It's not all the time, but it can be drawn out from different situations. And a lot of times these guys don't feel it until they're out there. And then now what? So if you got that extra net to help catch and filter us, like with the Our House Foundation, I think it'd be great if we can get a couple of those houses around the United States that they can kind of filter through.
That's a great idea. Again, what he's talking about is that awkward period between the time when guys and women get out of the service and before the VA picks them up. It can be a really difficult time, both in terms of what Bobby was saying about, you know, what do I do now? How do I reorient myself to the civilian world? But also a lot of times their pay stops.
Right.
So there's a gap between their last military paycheck and when their VA pension kicks in. Can be a really stressful time, and especially for guys who are fresh off the battlefield, who are already pretty stressed out, maybe been blown up a couple of times, and maybe he's got a little traumatic brain injury. It can be a difficult time. So again, as they come back into our communities, they really need our help.
This might be a bit more of a sensitive subject, Bobby, but noting the line in David's piece referring to your having been an atheist, we had a reader ask how your views on religion have changed, if at all, since you went into combat.
Yeah, of course they've changed huge for me on this last tour. When I was in a coma, I remember visions in my head, trying to figure out what those were. I was on a giant iceberg. It was dark outside, the stars were there, but it wasn't cold, I was comfortable. And I heard voices telling my family was waiting for me, that I'm gonna be okay. You know, and I battled with this thought, like, what was that? And I truly believe today that I was there being judged. And God said, hey, listen, you're a good guy, you just need a swift kick in the behind to know that I'm here. And with God's strength, you can do anything. And I've learned that, and I've learned to be patient and wait to see what my mission was, why I'm still here. And, you know, I was lucky to find that through sharing my story and also through comedy to kind of break that down and raise awareness. It's just been amazing, a journey for me in my spiritual world and my belief. You know, part of the big belief before, I had trouble believing that one religion's got to be wrong. And according to the Bible, if you're wrong, you don't believe, that person's going to hell. Or if you hurt somebody or you rape somebody, you hurt a child, you could say, I'm sorry and be forgiven. But because I didn't believe, no matter how good a person I was, that I was supposed to go to hell. But now, looking deeper into it, I see that all religions, if you really look at the religions, that core belief is the same. It's that energy we all have, all living things have between each other. We all have that's a natural feeling. That's the power, that's the higher power of God right there. And I think all these different nations, I mean, just like they speak a different language, they have a different culture. They interpreted that feeling a little different. And that's how we came with different religions. And we need to know as a world that we all have that same core, the belief in a higher power. And we can maybe stop all these wars over religion, and know that we're all one huge living thing.
Amen.
On a note nowhere near as deep as that, Bobby, we actually just got a question in from Deborah in Denver, who wants to know if you're performing anywhere remotely close to her in the near future. She will buy a plane ticket and go see you. And if not, whether you either have or you've thought of starting a website promoting your comedy.
Yes, you can go to bobbyhenline.com. I have a website with dates up there. I know earlier we talked about me going back to Vegas in January. That has changed. Brad Garrett is now moving his club to the MGM in Vegas, so we have to reschedule. But it looks like I'll be at the MGM sometime this summer. We'll check on my website for dates. But I'm doing comedy a little here and there. It's starting to grow, and maybe after today, get some people out there, have me out there at the clubs. They hear the fans want me out there, and I'll come to Denver soon, hopefully.
That's terrific.
Don't forget about the book I'm working on too. I'm going to pitch stuff right now. Might as well pitch, right?
When's that coming out?
I got writing on it, working on a second chapter. I got an agent still looking for a publicist to put it out there, but I think it's going to be a good story. I think I'll be able to reach a lot of people, and another way of getting the word out there that God has me here and be able to help others and pass the word on.
Good deal.
And speaking of good stories, David, you've been, as you said, working on this series for 7 months. It's been gestating for much longer than that, but I understand you're planning to keep talking to people like Bobby. You have other story ideas in mind.
There are a lot more stories to tell, and there are parts of this whole issue of wounded veterans that I did not have a chance to get into. So in the months ahead, I'm going to keep reporting, and you'll see my stories on the Huffington Post.
Any final thoughts from the two of you on this series and what it's meant to you, and what do you think it's brought to light?
I love the series. I thank Dave for doing this. It's been needed to be done. It hits so many different angles on from caregivers to the care we get. That's a big question a lot of people ask me. And we really do get good care. Like I said before, we just need to fix the little things, and that's always going to be like that. And the families are getting looked at now for what they go through. And and while I'm here, I want to thank my family and all the families out there. It's not just the service members, but they couldn't do it without the strong support of their families. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to join Bobby in that sentiment, but it's been just such a privilege for me to get to know people like Bobby, veterans, wounded veterans, and their families, the wives, the kids, the parents. I just can't say enough good things about them. They go through some hard times. Most of them seem so grateful to be alive and to have the opportunity to go on living. They're just such a good example. So it's been a real privilege for me to get to know them.
You talk about examples real quick. Young guy at 19 years old gets hurt, J.R. Martinez. He's an inspiration to me. I know a lot of people have seen him on All My Children. He's doing amazing on Dancing with the Stars. I mean, as a young kid, I come out of Desert Storm, I had trouble dealing with that, and I was fine. I couldn't imagine what he went through at 19, being burnt like that in 03. But he came out strong. He started speaking. He's out there. He's getting awareness. He inspires me. Just a credible young man.
Well, to David's point about privilege, likewise, David, it's been a privilege to work with you on this series to the extent that I have. It's come out great. Bobby, it's been an honor to speak with you and to see you face to face. The overwhelming majority of the comments and questions from our readers leading up to this chat have included some variation on this theme. But from Dolores Campari in Richland, New Jersey, to Lynn in Georgia, to Gene Banks and others, a heartfelt thank you for your service. A special thanks and much love from AFC Stacy Pennington at Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington, who says she doesn't have many memories of Fort Bragg without you, Connie, and the kids in them. You've always been quite the character, she writes, and an unforgettable one at that. I'll second that. For the Huffington Post, I'm Jeff Muskus. Thanks so much for being with us.